Welcome to Behind the Campaign, the podcast where marketers pull back the curtain on some of their favorite marketing campaigns. I'm joined today by Andy Choi. He is the founder and CEO of DoGood. Welcome, Andy.
Hi, Andy. Thanks for having
You
me.
get you get double your Andys today.
Yeah, the two different versions, the I and the Y.
Exactly. Yep. So for our listeners who are not familiar with your organization, Do Good, tell us a little bit about what you
Yeah.
guys do.
Yeah. Thanks again for having me. Hi, everyone. My name is Andy Choi. I'm the founder and CEO of DoGood. We are a social enterprise. And what that means, we comprise of both a 1C foundation and a for-profit technology company. At the core of everything that we do, we believe in what we call profit with purpose, right? So I believe nonprofits should be profitable, that if you're going to solve some of the biggest problems in the world, you actually need resources to do it, and that every business can be redemptive and have a social impact arm that is benefiting humanity rather than extracting from it. And the way we go about solving that problem is through our core product, which is called NaaS. Just like SaaS, software as a service, NaaS stands for nonprofit as a service, where we allow for-profit businesses and individuals to set up and spin up and maintain a nonprofit without the headache and trouble of maintaining their own. Normally, setting up a nonprofit costs anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000, takes about 6 to 12 months, and that's just hurdle number one. Usually, there's a ton of paperwork for filing, government like requirements, tax like 1090, 990 filings, all these other things that happen afterwards. That is just really difficult to maintain. And we see that as a barrier to doing good. So we created NaaS as a way for every business and individual to quickly go towards impact as fast as possible.
That is such a really great cause and such outside of the box thinking.
Yeah.
Instead of kind of doing things the way that they've always been done, this new concept is just is great. So the campaign that we're talking about today was a really ambitious campaign. So tell us a little bit about this campaign from Q4 of last year, where you set out to get 100 new clients in 12 weeks.
Yeah. So this one, when you reached out, I was excited because this campaign is just, it was so much fun, but such a big growing and learning experience for us. But just quick context, our company has been around 7 years, but we're very focused on B2C. So we have a consumer site called Do Good Point. And we've had some success there and kind of went up and down, but we really pivoted, long story short, to B2B about a year ago. And then less than 6 months ago, really kind of found product market fit with a product, SaaS product, which has been scaling really fast. And at the Q4 of last year, we were really trying to figure out how to solve for a number of problems as we were kind of pivoting our company and our business to really invest into NaaS and like its potential. And we landed at like, okay, we were looking at all the different ways to do it. And we landed at like this build in public, right? Where it's like, all right, we want to build in public. We want like everyone to be involved in our story, right? Like we're not trying to hard sell this thing, but really kind of collect data and information and do it in a way that's driving growth and sales, right? Like we're trying to kill a lot of birds with one stone, right? Like, and, after a lot of thought, landed at this kind of build a public campaign where we get 100 clients in 12 weeks. So it was 100 clients in Q4. How do we hyper focus on that and document and create a journey where our potential clients and our, supporters can really follow along?
So, what does building in public mean from a marketing perspective? You were basically telling people what the purpose of the campaign was, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So build in public really got popularized. Like there's been kind of moments of it, but really it started off with startups that says like, and founders and product people that says, hey, I'm building this thing and I'm, follow along, right? Like really I think it was one of the like when the genesis of like, the creator economy and, like kind of startup business like colliding, and it's like startup founders became like kind of these kind of celebrities, right,
Yeah.
creators themselves, and the build in public was just like you're kind of following the journey, right? So which I always loved, right? Because then you're storytelling rather than like just hard selling, right? You're really kind of bringing people along the journey. So like for us it was really we always wanted to do some version of that, right? Like, but it's just especially in the social impact space, we're always trying to start narratives, right? Like, because a lot of people are like, what is a social enterprise, right? Like, there's a lot of questions in regards to it. So we're kind of doing bits and pieces of it. But when it came to the pivot, we really wanted to focus on the product, right? So then like, we were like, okay, 100 customers. how do we actually do that, right? Like, and it's like, well, in order to do that, you have to tell what the product is. Like, the whole journey kind of like forces you to kind of share everything, but do it in a way that's not salesy, right? Like, does it really as a way of like discovery and journey, which really was like it was very authentic. This is not fabricated. Like we just made this pivot and we were trying to figure this out, right? And we were like, let's just figure it out together, right? Like because we're, like, yeah, it can be embarrassing if you fail or if it doesn't work out. But I'm like, at least people will know, right? Like, because it was the alternatives that we looked at. We hard sell it or, other tactical and campaign things. We're like, well, like nothing's guaranteed, right? We didn't have enough traction or data to say that like this is exactly the way we're going to do it and this will work. So we didn't have enough probability. So then we were like, this was a calculated risk for us. We were like, okay, no matter what happens, it's not a sunk cost. Because then, we're testing out all of our hypotheses and theories. We're getting people to join the journey. We're keeping them updated. So it just hit on a lot of levels. Sorry, did that answer your question?
Yes, that's great, and I think, it makes the people you're targeting part of the story, right?
Yep.
And you mentioned storytelling, which was the word that was coming to my mind as well, and I think that's something that draws a lot of people to campaigns like this. It's the reason we have Kickstarter and
Yep.
crowdfunding, right? Is people want to be part of something that's new and novel and exciting and doing good, and so I think that's, one of the reasons that your organization and this product in particular is so needed in society right now. For this particular campaign, you had kind of a dual purpose, right? It was obviously you were trying to close clients and get new clients, but also it was this awareness piece. How did you balance those two kind of messages and those two goals without sort of confusing your audience?
Yeah, I think, well, one, it starts with making sure we're not confused ourselves, right? I think oftentimes, especially startups and in moments of pivot, like the direction for the team is not clear, right? So really leading up to this campaign was really like kind of stripping things down. It was like, what questions or what problems do we need to solve for? Like, what is the end? What does success look like? Right. And I needed the entire team to be on board here because, it's like this was a really tight knit window and it was a really aggressive campaign. So, really starting with why are we doing this and what does success look like? Right. And ultimately, the biggest misconception about people that know about this campaign is that they think this was a sales exercise. It was a sales exercise. It was a way to like, GTM, go to market. It really wasn't. Like the underlying thing that we were trying to solve for is that we figured out that this was a problem. Like setting up a nonprofit was a big headache. We knew that, like, we were getting customers without even searching for them. So like we were like, okay, there's a real demand here. This is a real problem. What we didn't know is the TAM, which is a total addressable market. We didn't know how many people have this problem or like, what our ICPs are, right? Like, so then, stripping away like, ideal customer profiles, like, who has the problems? Where are they? Right? Like there was a lot of unknown. We know that there are, a segment, a smaller market that is like, oh, I want to start a nonprofit, but we're trying to solve problems at a very large scale. So then it's like, we need to kind of see what the scale of this thing is and the desire was. So to your point, it was why awareness was a big focus was that we were not trying to hard sell this product. If we had to educate people of what NaaS is and why starting a nonprofit is a good thing, what are the benefits of a nonprofit, what are the pros and the cons, that is way too long of a sales cycle. There's too much barrier. So we were not looking for net new potential customers. It was an awareness play for us because then we wanted to find people that already had this problem. We wanted to discover people that was like, hey, I've been waiting to start a nonprofit. I've been wanting to do this, or I'm in the middle of doing it, and it's such a problem. And I needed your product yesterday. Right. So that was like, it's you hear it in tech space. Are you a vitamin or a painkiller? We were not looking to be a vitamin. Right. Like vitamins are nice to have. It's like, oh yeah, I'll come back to that. Like, and I forget to take my vitamins all the time. I've been better about it this year, but like,
Say,
that is this the same thing, right? When you're a painkiller, it's like the amount of money and the trouble I'm willing to go to get that painkiller to stop my pain is, it's not comparable to a vitamin, right? So the awareness aspect of we were trying to reach audiences to make sure that there are the people that already had this problem that, hey, this solution is here, right? It's like moth to a flame, right? Like if you are the painkiller, like they're gonna come, right? Like if the product really offers value, right? And it's solving a problem at that scale. So that's where it was like the build in public was a way for us to like story tell, talk about the problem, why we think this is a good thing. Cause we found out like this was a real problem, but really make that solution available. So then the marketing and the campaign was like, all right, it's an awareness play because then we're describing the problem and here's a solution. And can the people that already need it, that already have this problem, need the solution, are they going to find it? Right? Are they going to find this story and be like, oh my gosh, I needed that. Right. So yeah, so that was like it was an awareness play, but the goal was like very different. A lot of people think it was like a sales like cycle, sales funnel. It really wasn't. It was more of an awareness play.
So you had mentioned that you had just made the shift, little over 6 months ago from B2C to B2B. So how did that shift go in terms of who you were targeting and kind of what did you learn through that shift?
Yeah, great question. So I think again, context, we've always had B2B services, right? So we've had it, we were doing physical sponsorship, other things. We just never productized it. It was never our core focus, business focus. Everything was like, if we were making money from it, which we were, it was just fueling the B2C, right? So again, in hindsight always looking back is 2020. I probably should have made the pivot earlier, but we've had some successes on our B2C side. But ultimately, long story short, the unit economics didn't like back out. Like customer acquisition costs, engagement costs were too high. So B2B wasn't a net new thing. It was always there. Again, it just didn't get all the love, right? It was kind of, and you hear this in a lot of startup stories. It was like, a lot of products are kind of found in accident. It was just something that they were doing or it was existed. And then we're like, oh, right, this has always been around. The demand for this was always there, right? Like, or you're kind of building something that you needed and it's like, oh, can other people need this, right? So I think the pivot wasn't as difficult because again, there was some foundation there. It was really figuring out what we wanted to pursue that was difficult, right? So then, like I said, we were already kind of switching to B2B, but it took us like about 6 months to figure out like which product and service was scalable for us. Right. We were like, if we're going to put all our resources into these things, what's an actual scalable product? And again, what is an actual painkiller rather than a vitamin? We had a lot of vitamin products, right? Like it's pretty easy to build vitamin products. It's like, yeah, that's great. People affirm it. And there's also so many distractions, right? Especially right now when the market is shifting with AI, everyone's building something. Everyone thinks they have a painkiller. Everyone thinks like there's no like shortage of ideas. And we were in the same boat, right? So then the pivot and the difficult thing was really trying to isolate a real problem, right? Which also led to why we did the campaign. It's like, because then once I figured out a real problem, what is the scale of that problem, right? So that was the progression because this is the one thing that I think, like, this is just my personal opinion. A lot of founders and a lot of startups, they're looking for a problem to solve. Right. Like I think that's a horrible way to start a business. Right. Like it's like usually you understand something so well and that problem is internal and then you solve it and then make it available to the market. But right now, like it's so trendy to like have a startup is like people are just kind of trying to find problems to solve. And a lot of those end up becoming vitamins, right? Because they're nice to have.
Yeah.
So you don't really know the extent of that problem until you're in it, like till you've experienced it. Right. So I think for us, again, it was kind of that journey that like, that made that pivot difficult is like really kind of, understanding being honest with ourselves, understanding kind of what we're trying to build, our objectives and what that problem was. And then from there, that sequence of leading to like, okay, what's the real thing that we're trying to solve with this campaign then? What is the focus of this campaign? It's not sales, it's not all these things, but it's to really address how big the market is for this.
Right. So obviously you are targeting nonprofits, you're working with a lot of nonprofits. Are there any marketing tactics that you see them using or that you have used on them that you think other B2C or B2B organizations should learn from?
Yeah, I mean, and this goes back to your previous question too, like our ideal customer profiles, right? Like because so much of when we talk about problems, like who has the problem, right? Like, and one, we don't our ICPs are actually not nonprofits. That's another thing a lot of people don't understand. We're actually trying to get we're not so nonprofits are existing. They have 501(c)(3) status. They don't necessarily need NaaS as a service. But I'll go back to that. We actually do have a lot of nonprofit clients. We want to go after net new markets, which are businesses and individuals that are looking to start a nonprofit or have interests or something of that sort, right? Because what we're trying to do from a bigger scale, so people understand our business model, is like we're not trying to extract or compete within the social impact space. We're trying to pull more resources into it, right? So giving has been fixed at about 2% GDP the last 40 plus years that it's been tracked. Nonprofits, if you know it, like are closing at a rapid rate right now. Funding has gone down. Obviously, government circumstances has not helped. It's kind of amplified the need there. So then, it's this complete scarcity model. It's where we're like, all right, that pie, everyone's fighting over scraps and the same
Yeah.
piece, right? If anyone knows a nonprofit space, like it's just a very difficult, broken space, right? So for us, we're trying to make the pie bigger by pulling in new resources. That's how NaaS is positioned. So our ideal customer profiles are the actual business owners, are individuals that are doing good and can bring more resources into the nonprofit space. So this goes back to your last two questions, like who are our customers? That's our customers. But like what other nonprofits should be learning is that, or other businesses, anyone, it's to really understand the persona of your customers and to have hypothesis and then validate those hypothesis based on, again, this was an awareness campaign for us, but that awareness campaign was to really identify who the problem seekers or like the people that have the problem, who they are, right? And is there a reoccurring well there? Is this a group of people that we can go back to? And we know that it's going to constantly have this problem or this need, right? So then I think, as marketers, like that is like, again, what are you trying to get? What does success look like? And really get down to the specifics and figure out how to address those, right? All right. Yeah. Let me pause there.
Yeah, no, I think that's completely 100% accurate. As someone who's on the board of a nonprofit, I
Yeah.
see the inner workings of them trying to get funding and, to do what they want to do. And a lot of times nonprofits are targeting, other entities that are also being strained for cash and,
Yeah.
like you said, there's just a lot going on right now, particularly in the United States, that funding is being cut in a lot of different places and it's really squeezing. So I think, again, the reason this is so warranted right now. As for the campaign, looking back on it, because this was Q4 of last year, is there anything you would have changed? Any challenges? Anything you learned?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I would like to have been better prepared. Like everything is just kind of a scramble. And that's just the nature of the startup space. And, I'm sure you've heard the saying, like, it's progress, not perfection. But being a perfectionist and being someone that's like a kind of type A, I would have love for things to work out and, be very rigid. For example, like to keep a more consistent calendar and content, like going out regularly. We had a goal of like 3 posts or videos or updates a week. Some weeks we hit all three. Some weeks we did one, right? Like while we're trying to run the business and run the campaign, especially a build in public requires kind of a whole team effort because you're kind of sharing all the different parts, moving parts of what it is. It's not just one narrative, right? Because you're kind of, again, when you're building a house, you're not just building one thing at once. You're kind of building a lot of different things.
Good analogy.
Yeah, so it's like you're pulled in a lot of different directions. And I think like this is easy to say now, but it's like really saying no to a lot of things that took us away. Like there were a lot of opportunities that came up during that period, and I knew that it was going to suck resources, time, and energy. And they were like very shiny objects. Some of them were like business deals and things. We're like, no, we know what we're hyper focused on. This campaign and what we need to prove for this campaign, the data that we need to collect, that is the number one focus, right? And as a startup, you're always pulled in different direction, but it was like staying hyper focused to that was difficult. But I think for the most part, we did that. And the other piece I would say that was in hindsight, I would love to have done differently is that I would love to have the schedule be tighter, right?
Mm.
Like the campaign kind of ended at the end of the year, but like we didn't say this publicly, but like our last video went out at like the end of January, right? Like you kind of need time to collect data and share updates. Like the holiday season, all of that, like it just kind of kills momentum a little bit, right? People are out. We didn't want the content to happen during that period either, because again, we're B2B. So LinkedIn is like, kind of a dead period during that season. So I think timing wise, if we would have thought through that a little bit more and kept a tighter window, that would have been, I think it would have gotten more traction. But again, in hindsight, like overall, the campaign went well. But those are some of the things that come to mind.
Do you have a particular success story, an organization that you've helped through NaaS that you don't have to say the name if you don't want to, but maybe something that you just kind of hold near and dear to your heart as you continue on this journey to say, look,
Yeah.
this is doing good and this is possible?
Honestly, there's so many, right? Because the campaign was a success for, if you haven't seen it, like we ended up with 84 clients out of the 100. 100 was a stretch goal to begin with. 84 was a success. And I can't like, I want to say, I don't know the exact percentage number, but at least 80% of those calls or people that heard about us and reached out, they were one call closes, meaning that it was the
They
vast
needed
majority.
it.
They needed that. They were like, oh my gosh, like it was like, where do I sign up? It wasn't like me, like they were like, oh, I've been waiting for a solution for this problem and you guys have it. Like, so to your question is like, there were so many of these conversations, like, this is exactly what I've been waiting for. I've had this problem for so long. I think that was really good validation for us. And obviously it makes me feel amazing when we're like, okay, we're really providing a solution here. And there are so many amazing projects, right? And I think I'm always blown away and inspired by people that like have such a heart to do good and they just need the means to do it. Right. And like how we can break down those barriers. There's so many inspiring stories. Yeah. Like there's one I would say like, that's kind of fun that people can track that's happening now. There's a thing called Community Week that's happening in New York City,
Oh,
where
nice.
over 100 communities are coming together. But the organizers, which have been clients from the get go of NaaS, is a community called Sugary NYC. They focus on art and culture, and they're really trying to solve and tackle the problem of just loneliness. Even in a city like New York that has like, close to 9 million people, loneliness is an epidemic, right? And how do they solve that? Like, create spaces that build community, right? So all that to say, doing good is not always just one thing. It can be community week, it can be planting trees, it can be obviously humanitarian effort and all of those things. But good means a lot of different things for a lot of different people. And the way we participate and do good, like, is that's our story. Again, all of us should be building in public in that sense, right? Like, and sharing
Yeah.
that story and getting people to come along the journey.
Yeah. One of the things I always harp on with my students is that all marketing starts with research. So,
Yeah.
was there research that you kind of did to figure out what direction either that you wanted to develop this NaaS product or kind of where my mind is going is you mentioned your TAM, right? The total addressable
Yeah.
market. Did you find that out ahead of time or did you find that out through the process of the campaign?
We definitely found out ahead of time, right? So we're a tech startup, right? So we don't operate like a nonprofit. Nonprofits operate in very different. Like I'm a serial entrepreneur. I started my first company when I was 14. So like, everything comes down to data. When you hear about the tech companies, all data driven. So I'm in 100% agreement with you. So then for us, like, why was TAM such a big deal? I was working with one of our advisors, who's a big time founder, and we were, kind of like we had a jam session, meaning that it's like we just blocked off a chunk of time on our calendar. We're just working through the problems and the number and the data, right? Like, we do a lot of these, but this particular one was a very high level one where we're like, all right, there's a demand here. Like, how do we back out the numbers to see if this is a scalable business, right? Because there are unit economics that really, the numbers don't lie, right? Like, if you're, depending on, like, I don't know who's listening to this, depending on the size of the business that you're trying to build, depending on the scale and how you're pricing, it all is, you know, so let's just use an example of a retail business. If you are a retail shop in New York City that's going to sell, coffee, right? Like, based on your, your rent, your foot traffic, all of these things are indicators of how you need to price your product, what scale, how you can be successful, blah, 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 right? It's the same thing for a tech startup. So then for us, if we want to build, for example, a VC-backed business, right? Meaning that we want it to become hopefully a unicorn, right? Like that has that type of scale potential. The unit economics need to back out in a certain way. And is it a self-service product? Can it have a outbound sales team? What level can we become profitable? Those are all math problems that are you can kind of solve for, or at least have, with some standard deviation, some really good indicators of like, okay, you metrics, right? So that's why in the startup world, they do funding in rounds, right? Like you have pre-seed, seed, A, like in every one of those funding rounds, the metric changes and the focus changes, right? And so for us, as a pivoted business, like, we were pivoting. So we're kind of at that seed stage. Like there are certain data points that we had to look at. It's like, okay, like how scalable is this business? At what price point if we're going to have a team of, I'm making these numbers up, like without disclosing like, let's say we're going to have a team of 10, product engineers, all of these things. What does this product need to be priced at? How many customers? And it really came, all of that, we were running all of these data points and numbers. And then what it really came down to is like, what's the total addressable market? How many potential customers are there to back out to this other number? Because the honest question, right, yeah, just full disclosure, is like, how big of a company are we trying to build here? Right? Like, is this just a small niche? Because we know that there are people that have this problem, or is there a bigger like market opportunity? Right. So that's where the data, to your point, like these were like, let's figure this out. It's like they were very thought through, like kind of problems and data points that we needed to solve for.
You mentioned that obviously, if you want to start a nonprofit, it is a big endeavor,
Yeah.
right? It can be small, but if you're doing it right, it's a large endeavor. Are there any aspects of starting a nonprofit that you find people have more difficulty with than others? Is it the paperwork? Is it regulations? Is it the funding aspect of it? Is there one piece of it that's more difficult than the rest?
Yeah, I think which is going to be, I think the vast majority of people don't realize that they probably don't want a 501(c)(3), right? They don't understand what it means to have a nonprofit, right? Like there are nuances, liabilities, and things that are just, when you think about it, when you actually know everything or talk to someone that knows the space, it's like, oh yeah, I don't want that, like, and I'll describe some examples. One, yes, like when it comes to a logistical like problems, which is like setting up a nonprofit is just really expensive and is a huge headache, right? If you're going to do it yourself, it's a mountain of paperwork. You then have to wait 6 to 12 months, depending on the government backlog to get your organization approved, if it's approved, right? But what happens is that like once you get a nonprofit, it's not a badge that you just get to keep. You have to maintain it. There's governance requirements, again, like filings on a state and federal level. It's a huge liability because the other piece that a lot of people don't realize, and we always share this, is like winding down a nonprofit is actually more difficult and can get more expensive than setting one up. I mean, just think about the liability. It's not something you can just walk away from. It is a
Yeah.
government entity that is tied to your name, and you're taking on this liability, right? And this is where, some of the nuances are helpful. The vast majority, there are 1.8 million, roughly 1.8 million nonprofits registered 501(c)(3)s in the United
Wow.
States. About 70+%, like it kind of fluctuates depending on the year, but let's just say about 75% on average operate at under $50,000 or less. I mean, you have
Can't
all
do
of this
anything.
legal, you don't need it. These are like the ministries, these are the beach cleanup days, the after school programs. These are amazing programs and people doing amazing good things, right? But like the headache and the liability that they take on to do that at a $50,000 or less, like it's just not necessary, right? But like you should be able to receive tax deductible donations. You should get all of the tax incentives that come with running a social impact organization. Like those are things that are good things that should be available to the individual and SMBs, right? Like small, medium-sized businesses. So like, I hope that helps like really understanding what your needs are and what the liabilities are and like the best path forward. So for us is like creating this alternative that allows and empowers these people. Like Our mission statement as an organization is to activate and empower the next generation of do-gooders. And the way we're doing that with NaaS is that we're breaking down a barrier to actually getting the benefits of a nonprofit, right? Like we want that access and that formation to be available to everybody.
It's great. So if there are people out there who are sitting in their family room or driving in their car listening, and they've always had a great idea for a nonprofit, they really want to do something and they want to learn more about NaaS and what you guys do, where should they go to find you?
Yeah, they can go to home.dogoodpoints.com. That's kind of our general like information page, but also we have a lot of content and information on LinkedIn because NaaS maybe not is not the right solution, but we want you to be aware of what it is to set up a nonprofit. What are the best ways to do that? So, as objectively as possible, we share content and information on LinkedIn. So find us under Do Good there. And of course, I'm on there creating a lot of content, building in public, sharing kind of all the different ways that, you can do good.
This has been a great conversation. I will put all of those links in the show description on YouTube or on the podcasting platform so everybody can just click through to them. And thank you so much for joining me and explaining NaaS and Do Good and all of the great work that you guys are doing.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks for listening and thanks for everyone for joining.